we should be okay. All right, everyone. I guess I'm sort of just seeing my PowerPoint presentation, or sorry, Google Docs presentation here, rather than anyone's faces. So feel free to make any strange faces. I won't be able to see them anyway, but hopefully some of the other presenters can check out what's going on and make sure that everything's working okay virtually in this hybrid space. And I'm not sure whether you can see the room or not, but hopefully we've set it up so that you can kind of see the physical in-person room that we've got in Melbourne. So look, I won't take too long to lead off, but this is a combined community event. So that is the Architects Group and the Marketing Developers Group, a combined event across the two communities. And hence we've got a slightly different audience and set of attendees than either one of us normally gets, I think, but there's some crossover. So if this is your first of either of those two, welcome. We are both inclusive communities, so thank you very much for turning up. Also, I'll call out before we start, if you'd like to present at either of these community events, please put your hand up. It's always good to hear from a wider variety of the community on any topic, so just feel free to reach out to any of the folks that run the communities. Okay, so what are we discussing today? I'll kick this off, but we've got a series of presenters, so I'm not promising that the transitions will be smooth, but bear with us and we will pass from presenter to presenter in a hybrid fashion. But we're discussing cross-cloud duplicate management, and it's quite a good topic considering that, you know, we do come from slightly different perspectives. I think a lot of the architects group are probably more from the core perspective, not all, but generally, right? And then obviously the marketing communities from the marketing perspective. And I think the two areas are really going to interplay. I mean, they're already interplay a lot, but they're going to interplay more and more, especially as if you haven't heard the news. There is a move for Marketing Cloud to move on to core. Now, what that actually means, I think, is still a little bit open to interpretation, but that is apparently happening. And importantly, in January, I think the target date in January is that Marketing Cloud will be here on Hyperforce as well, which is pretty cool as well. Okay, so I've departed from the subject matter a little bit. So first of all, I'll lead off with a very obvious duplicate problem. You see, this is clearly the same individual. Clearly. All right. We've also got Elliot.
Yes, hi there. There we go.
Yeah. How are you, Elliot?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Now I couldn't work out, is that actually you?
No, it's not. No. I can officially confirm I don't play Miss Trunchbull and Matilda the musical. This is someone called Elliot Harper, who comes up on Google, but I beat him as far as the search results. But so I'm based in Orange, New South Wales, and I'm sorry I can't join you in person. It's a very long way to travel. I have to go via Sydney. But I've been working with Marketing Cloud for over a decade, yeah, happy to. Looking forward to contributing today.
And Josephine.
Well, a girl could always dream, I guess. At least we share the same last name. Anyway, I work for OCF Digital. I've been in the Marketing Cloud space for 5+ years now. I work as a solution architect specializing in Marketing Cloud as well as Marketing Cloud personalization, formerly known as Interaction Studio. So yeah, I'm really excited for the talk today.
And Josephine, you are the princess of Interaction Studio.
Well, thank you. Not sure about that though, but yeah, flattered.
Oh, and Niraj, we don't have a slide for you.
That's fine. I will introduce myself in the next one.
Okay, all right. Well, Niraj will introduce himself in the second talk. All right. So to dedupe or not dedupe, and I've got to watch because that's hard to say. I didn't even realise that until I just tried to say it. That is the question. So I think broadly, I've got a few considerations to talk about here, and I'll just talk through this section. But broadly, everyone always has the intention, like all of your clients, I'm sure, all of your organisations, if you're industry side, always have an intention to dedupe their customer records. Right? The question is that really what you want to do, and what does that mean? So it isn't always, and we had a great presentation on the last architects meetup about deduping with some of the core. And I'll touch on some of that stuff just to remind people and also to illustrate for the folks who weren't there. But it isn't always the real problem that you want to solve. So actually trying to munge together customer records is not necessarily the right answer in certain circumstances. And just in the Salesforce world, if we talk about some of the considerations around core and duplicates, I've highlighted some here. But Salesforce started as a B2B model, right? So very much account contact. You couldn't have a contact without an account, or not really. So there wasn't really a concept of a person account initially. Later on, they released a concept for the B2C space, which was a person account. That's a combo account contact. I know most people are aware of this in the room, but I think ultimately what that means is there is already a default starting point that if you're an individual that works for a company or you're just an individual doing business with a company, you are possibly represented in a couple of different ways within a CRM context, and that's just CRM. So on top of that, you've got the concept of leads and how leads play into things, and leads eventually potentially become accounts, contacts, person accounts. And there are some unique and interesting challenges when it comes to Marketing Cloud and leads and contacts, duplicates. Okay. By the way, if anyone wants to stop and ask a question, I don't know how that works on hybrid, but virtually, I'm not sure it works. But if anyone in the room wants to ask a question or say anything.
Paul, you're on mute.
Yeah, Paul, try reloading the page, perhaps. It says you're on mute on our end. I haven't seen this before.
Yeah, I think it happened once.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, it's back again.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Thanks. Continue.
Yeah,
Thanks, Paul.
All right, cool. All right. let me go back to okay, we good? Everything working okay? Yes. Okay, I'm going to assume that we're okay in the virtual world as well. Please yell if that stops working again. I don't think I pressed anything, but anyway. Okay, so I think I was saying before that when it comes to Experience Cloud and participation in the system, so when you move beyond CRM and you're talking about portals and customer participation in the system, the way that Salesforce is modeled is it's essentially a one-to-one relationship between a user and a contact record within Salesforce. So, and sometimes that contact is part of a person. If you're using a default B2C model within Salesforce. So it generally means that if you've got relationships with a particular individual that are in a company or B2B context and a B2C context, and they're going to participate with you via a portal, in both of those different contexts, they're usually not going to be the same physical record and the same user account. Now, there are ways of doing it. There are definitely ways of bringing together those views, but more often than not, that's not actually what a company wants to do, because when you're operating within the context of a company and you're representing a company and their interaction with another company, that's generally different than you acting as an individual consumer with that company. Okay, so I think beyond that, there are some other considerations. So I think what I've got represented on this diagram, by the way, and I'm using Salesforce management as an example of people here. But what you've got on this is the concept of an individual record. Now, individual is a nice way of tying together the different representations of a contact, even on core. So that whole model, that individual data model, and also the whole privacy and consent data model, that all exists on core. So it's often a way of representing or tying together a single view of sorts without having to merge together or consolidate contacts or person accounts. So ultimately, if you go through all of that analysis and you still land on you want to actually have genuinely just one record representing a person within your CRM and within core Salesforce, you then have to consider mergers, and mergers are pretty problematic in Salesforce. They're certainly challenging. There are lots of different barriers to merging. So if there's users associated, you're ending up deleting one half of it. You've got to have the right rights on the record to be able to do it. All sorts of different considerations just for merging. But merging is relatively straightforward compared to demergers. So I don't know if anyone else has been asked this, but I've certainly been asked if we can do demergers on Salesforce. Certainly if you customize something, but it takes a lot of customization to do. So there is no easy way of accomplishing a demerge, and so hence it's really questionable whether you should merge in most cases, or whether you should just link and relate records. Okay. So on that topic, is it about consolidation and building a golden record or an identifier, or is it about unification, so unified profile? So I won't go into great depth about that topic because I think some of my co-presenters are touching on this a bit more further on. But there is a bit of a new paradigm here more recently with Data Cloud. I've actually called it CDP there because just more broadly, it could be any CDP theoretically. But there is a bit of a crossover between what does your CRM give you, what does CDP give you, and then what does an MDM give you. So for those who've been around a bit longer, the the way of producing the single view of or the master record used to be MDM. MDM was the way to do that, and it was the only conversation that was had. And they typically ended up being very, very expensive projects, not necessarily achieving the end goal, but certainly with a lot of robust functionality, especially around matching, merging, demerging even, survivorship, and the like. So very, very robust tool sets, but again, is it solving the right problem? Do you really need to actually dedupe a record? Do you really need one consolidated single golden record? Or is it enough to do something like a CDP does, which is to really do an element of that to unify the data so that you have a picture of what that person looks like, and then can use that actively in different channel communication, so across personalization and segmentation. Okay. And just to remind everybody, and also, I guess, to cover off for the new attendees, some of the areas that you can look at with Core to partially solve this problem, if you need to. You can look at Salesforce data quality rules. So, so this was covered pretty extensively in the last presentation in the Architects Meetup, but that's the matching rules, the duplicate rules. They are not as robust or sophisticated or multi-layered as an MDM might have, so like an Informatica data quality or something similar. It doesn't have that level, but they're useful. And then you can look at some slightly more robust third-party App Exchange tools. I've just given some examples there, but there are tons on the App Exchange if you have a look. You do need to be conscious of things like the fact that some of those actually process the data off platform. And so you need to know where that is in some instances. And so you need to do a bit of due diligence as to how they're doing it and where and using what. And then there's something heavier. I don't know if anyone here has done Informatica CC360. If you've been at Country Road Group or David Jones or any of those places, they have it, I know. So Informatica CC360 is a pretty interesting offering, but Informatica built it to be like a customer master light, which sits on Salesforce. It's a somewhat challenging because it ends up meaning that you put a lot of data into Salesforce, and it's quite if you need to change it, it's not as easily malleable as a standalone MDM. So Informatica also obviously, of course, makes a very robust enterprise-grade MDM solution. Oracle rebadged it at one point as well. So there are a lot of external MDM options, and there are obviously a lot of external CDP options as well. And again, you're solving the problem, but you're solving it in slightly different ways. Okay, I don't know if anyone wants to ask any questions first, or we move on and do questions at the end. Let's move on and do questions at the end. I'm going to go with that. Okay, so I'm passing over. Elliot,
good.
I think
Thank
this
you,
is you.
Paul. It is. Would you mind just stop sharing your screen and I'll start sharing mine? It won't let me do that without it. I've added a couple of slides. Thank you.
Excellent.
There we go. Fantastic. So let me go and click on this, and here we go. Fantastic. So over the next few minutes, I'm going to be talking about two topics. Firstly, managing subscriber duplication in Marketing Cloud, and then moving on to talking about Data Cloud and some of the paradigms that platform solves. So particular with Marketing Cloud, I want to call out some considerations that pertain to working with leads and contacts records in Salesforce, as I'm sure that's a topic that's many of you kind of have questions about. So there are a few different ways of deduplication in Marketing Cloud. And just to clarify, I'm talking about Marketing Cloud engagement, formerly Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Paul discussed how to do mergers in core, but there's certainly no concept of mergers in Marketing Cloud. So let me talk about through the alternatives. So the first and most simple form or method for deduplication in Marketing Cloud is by deduplicating emails at send time. So when you initiate a batch send from Marketing Cloud, there's a deduplicate subscribers option that we see on this screen that determines whether the system prevents multiple messages from the send from being sent to the same email address. And the system automatically deduplicates both lists, groups, and filters from lists if you're using a list-based model, but based on the subscriber identifier. But if you're using data extensions and filters, then it optionally uses this deduplicator on email address. So the next option, and more commonly, is to use the contact deletion framework in Marketing Cloud, which was introduced a few years ago to support GDPR. And this enables you to either declaratively, that is through the user interface, or programmatically through the API, prune or remove contact records from the platform. And also, given the audience here tonight, I think it's important to call out some terminology here. So when I refer to a contact in Marketing Cloud, this is actually an abstract entity that represents an individual, not to be confused with an individual in Sales Cloud or Data Cloud for that matter, or maybe more helpfully, an abstract entity that represents a person. But this could be a Salesforce lead, it could be a contact, or actually something else. So please try not to confuse the terms. But anyway, moving on. So this framework uses either records in a data extension or in a list in the platform that you want to remove, and then initiates the deletion process. And for kind of all of our Marketing Cloud users in the room today, I just want to kind of share one neat trick, and you can check this out in more detail on my vlog, mc.chat. You can actually create a mobile filtered list using attributes in your contact model, that is, using the declarative filter expression builder to go and determine who you want to delete. So you create this list and then use that for deletion. And this is a really great technique because you can actually refresh the mobile filtered list within an automation and then trigger the deletion process from a script activity. So, for example, if you want to identify contacts without an email address or perhaps some other attribute that's in your contact model, then you can automate this process to occur at a regular cadence. And again, shameless plug for my vlog, mc.chat, if you want to learn more about that technique. So, the contact deletion framework in Marketing Cloud is actually a really well-considered model, as it also includes this notion of a suppression period. So by default, this suppression period, well, it used to be 30 days several years ago, then it changed to 14 days, and now it's 2 days. But let me explain what the suppression period is and why it's necessary. So during the suppression period, contacts is still available in Marketing Cloud, but you can't access them or send to them. And the logic behind this design is that Salesforce recognized that when an individual exercises their right to be forgotten, which was the original intent of this feature, then you don't just need to remove the records from Marketing Cloud, but also from other platforms like CRM, from your data warehouse, and maybe event management systems, all your other sources. And these processes take time to run across different platforms. They don't happen instantaneously. So, Marketing Cloud, without data, you can't do anything. It kind of relies on ETL processes to feed data into the platform. So it prevents, for example, contacts who you're deleted from Marketing Cloud from being reintroduced an hour later in the next customer data import from perhaps Sales Cloud or your CRM. Another important consideration is with this framework is that, have I got a slide for this? I talked about that suppression period, is that it, while it removes records from the all subscribers list, and as well as your contact model, it also prunes them or removes them from any sendable data extension in your account, which is purely intentional. And also any tracking data is anonymized. So tracking reports will show clicks from an email address deleted at bh.exacttarget.com. So let me click on this. And it also changes the IP address to an IP address of 0.0.0.0 for deleted records. So the other option another important, what am I going through here? Anonymizes tracking data. No, we talked about that. I'm sorry. Subscriber key migration. So another option for deduplicating records is through subscriber key migration. So you typically kick off this process when you want to preserve historical tracking data when you've changed the subscriber key. So perhaps you're migrating from an old CRM system which has this unique system of record or ID, and you want to move that over to a new one, like a lead or contact ID. Point to note that this does require professional services engagement, which comes at a significant fee. So also another call out worth mentioning to our audience today, and actually one of the main duplication headaches that we see in Marketing Cloud, is when a lead is converted to a contact in Sales Cloud. So at that time, subscriber and contact records for the lead in the Marketing Cloud data models is still retained in Marketing Cloud, which can be an absolute nuisance, particularly because you're charged for the number of contacts. And again, contacts, I'm referring to kind of the contact model, this abstract entity of a person in Marketing Cloud. So I assume others typically create a query to identify these subscribers that exist in the all subscribers list, and then join that to the lead_Salesforce synchronized data extension where the is converted field in Salesforce is true. And then you initiate the contact deletion process for those converted leads to ensure you're not charged for these contacts. And of course, for these use cases here, deletion in marketing, this isn't a merge, deletion in Marketing Cloud is a highly destructive process. You're going to lose all your historical data and all those data extension records. So it has to be performed with caution. And can someone just maybe Josephine, you can confirm you can see the unsubscribes screenshot on my screen, or Paul?
Yep.
Good, fantastic. So thank you. So on a somewhat unrelated note, and actually not one specific to deduplication, but I thought it's important to call out, given the audience today, is that when the email opt-out field is checked or unchecked, lead or contact record, it doesn't magically unsubscribe the contact from Marketing Cloud. Now, if you're using a Salesforce entry event in Journey Builder to send emails to leads and contacts, which is triggered by a flow, then this is honored, and that has opted out of email field flows through to Marketing Cloud, but it doesn't for batch send. So you do need to ensure that you either add there's an unsubscribe or resubscribe button to the page layout as part of the kind of connector setup for leads and contacts. There's actually also an open source managed package available, which I believe kind of uses an Apex trigger to go and update the subscriber record in Marketing Cloud. But I just thought it's worth calling out. So I'd now like to kind of swiftly move on. Again, I'm happy to answer questions at the end to our new friend, Data Cloud. I just kind of point to note, I'm not going to talk about Data Cloud's capabilities at length, because that demands a separate event. In fact, several separate events. It's a very comprehensive platform. But for the uninformed here tonight and wondering, you're still confused and you're not sure what Data Cloud is, you'd be forgiven. I mean, it's a platform that's changed its name 5 times in 5 years. And actually, some assume to it, oh, it's another Salesforce cloud. We've seen them all. We've got Health Cloud, Education Cloud, Financial Services Cloud, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud. It's not Sales Cloud. It's not built on S objects, and it's certainly not kind of one of the industry clouds. Nor is it just a SKU like AI Cloud is. It's a completely different platform, but which is, among other things, designed with record duplication in mind. And it handles record duplication by a very different, unique process to other Salesforce platforms. And again, we simply don't have time to explain the entire platform architecture and feature set, but I just want to focus tonight on how Data Cloud manages identity resolution, which is very pertinent to the topic today. So identity resolution in Data Cloud helps really address the issue of customers having multiple profiles and records across different contact points and across different systems. So at a high level, let me kind of explain how that process works. So while Data Cloud can ingest profile data from different types of data sources, really a key capability of the platform is in establishing a single representation of different data sets. And it does this by unifying multiple profile data points to a single representation of an individual. And through a combination of both, for any of you who've had some experience in identity resolution or CDPs, you'll know the term of deterministic and probabilistic matching rules. Data Cloud can fulfill this process at scale by effectively processing millions of records and deriving a unified profile for each individual. Now, different platforms and systems for an individual. A digital marketing platform might, at a minimum, have first name and an email address to a customer, while a CRM platform may hold more of a complete data set, which includes a mailing address and a phone number. While other platforms like perhaps an event registration or kind of commerce platform may store additional profile attributes. And furthermore, some customers might have multiple or duplicate profiles in data sources. For example, past orders in an e-commerce platform that use a different email address for individual customers. Paul, if I can just interrupt my presentation, kind of for the benefit of those who are tuned in, would you mind going on mute as kind of we're hearing kind of echoing of it? I'm sure very interesting conversations, but I just want to make sure everyone's able to follow along. So thank you. So let's kind of talk about how that actually works in more detail. So identity resolution in Data Cloud is a multi-step process. Now, the first step is in unifying the different data points to establish a notion of what's called this unified individual. And Data Cloud achieves this by connecting all profile data points to a unified individual record. Now, the important concept to understand is that unlike many MDM or master data management platforms that Paul touched on earlier, which I feel woefully unqualified to talk about because Paul is actually a subject matter expert of many things, including MDMs. But these typically provide a golden record by aggregating profile attributes into a single record for an individual. Data Cloud has a very different approach in that it establishes relationships from one or more individual records into this notion of a unified individual. And as a result, lineage to the source data is retained, which enables tracking of historical data flow over time. So details of where the data originated, how it's changed, and its ultimate destination is completely preserved. And for each unified individual record, there can be one or more individuals, but there's always at least one unified individual record for every individual, even if there are no matches returned. And this crude diagram I've put together below attempts to illustrate this concept. And here we have two individual records, and I hasten to add, please do not confuse these with the individual records in Sales Cloud. That is, the kind of S objects. The model, while kind of it might share a name, it's very different. in schema in different ways. But ultimately, both of these individual records in Data Cloud roll up to this notion of a unified individual profile. So now let's talk about how that actually works under the hood in a bit more detail. So a unified profile is the result of what's called a match rule in Data Cloud. And we'll talk about we'll talk about match rules next, but unified profiles are created on activation of these match rules. And this profile type represents attributes related to a unified individual and has a mutable identifier. That is, the representation of an individual can change at any time based on in-the-moment data. For example, a unified profile could be based on 3 records belonging to the same person, where 1 record is from a CRM platform and 2 are based on purchase history from a commerce platform. Like perhaps our friend Paul purchased 2 orders. He bought a backpack and he bought lipstick. However, if these related data points change in the data source later, for example, Paul just updated the shipping address information for his lipstick order for his partner, then we now know that James actually doesn't, or maybe he does, but don't think he uses lipstick, and that transaction can actually be related to a different individual. So the net result is that we have this very pliable profile model that's constantly resolving identities to link the different data points together in order to provide a best intent representation of what an individual is determined to be at a point in time based on that data that's currently available. So let me kind of more explain some of the concepts behind identity resolution. Then I think it will be helpful for you. So firstly, this notion of match rules. So these determine how the identity resolution process should resolve identity matching records. So rules consist of 1 or more match criteria, and once all criteria within a rule are met, then a profile is matched. Now, match rules don't apply any gradation or scoring or weighting or hierarchy, unlike lead scoring in Pardot or MCAE, I think is now called. So match criteria is instead evaluated independently. And if the platform determines that a match is returned, then it's considered to be a match. And there were 3 different types of match rules, which I think that are helpful to understand. And these are exact, exact normalized, and fuzzy. So let me briefly kind of touch on each one in turn. So you've got an exact match rule method that uses a string-to-string comparison method to determine a deterministic based match based on a case-insensitive value. For example, fail in uppercase and in title case. These will all both considered to be an exact match. And then we have an exact normalized match. And this is available for certain field in DMOs, or the data model object in Data Cloud, which is a platform object model, which is aside the scope of conversation today. But this method normalizes field values based on their type and applies a deterministic base match for the following fields. We have email address, and and it also removes any trailing space characters and non-alphanumeric characters like double quotation marks and kind of those angle brackets. It can normalize on phone, and it sanitizes this, removing any white spaces, and also actually parses and validates phone numbers based on their country code, and also quite cleverly address. So it standardizes the address based on country-specific rules. Like for a US address of 2201 Bruce Avenue N and 2201 Bruce Ave North would be determined to be a match. And then finally, we have this notion of a fuzzy match. So this is your probabilistic based match rule that finds strings that match with a given string partially, but not exactly. And you kind of commonly see this in search engines that uses what's called the BERT, or bidirectional encoded representation from transformers language model, to match common misspellings, diacritical marks, synonyms, and other parameters. And next, we've got this notion of party matching. So Data Cloud uses arguably an unhelpful notion of a party, but that's a different discussion. Think of this as an abstract entity that can either refer to three things, either a subject area, a party identification DMO, or other unique identifying fields in Data Cloud. But in the context of identity resolution, this rule uses again, the party identification model to match a set of values to an individual. And this matching method uses the following attributes. I'm not going to kind of talk about each of those ones in turn. Let's instead look at an example which kind of helpfully provides a description and some various applications. But the way that this works is that this kind of party matching rule model essentially matches on the party identification type, the name, and the number values that we see here. So conceptually, when these three values are concatenated together, and I've come up with this crude example down the bottom, then this represents a unique individual. And these unified individual records with these identical values are considered to be a match. So if you kind of hear about this notion of a party identification in Data Cloud, that's what it's referring to. I think that's my last slide. It is my last slide. So I'm going to go and stop sharing. Yes, so I'm happy to take lots of questions at the end. I can see there's some great ones flowing in, but to keep the evening moving forward and give me time to reflect on those great questions, perhaps we can move on to our next presenter.
Sure thing. All right. Screen.
And while you're doing that, Josephine, again, I'm going to be actually responding to these questions in the chat window, just so we kind of got a persistent thread. So.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Perfect. All right. So Marketing Cloud Personalization, also known as Former Interaction Studio. I will start off with going through the unified user profile. This is going to be similar to what Elliot was describing in Data Cloud, because the mechanisms between these two platforms are very similar. Not exactly the same, but they are similar to each other, which I find is really interesting, specifically working with both platforms. So to get a better understanding as well how this works in personalization, which I will use the acronyms MCP for quite throughout when I talk, so everyone is aware of that. I'll be going through this slide to describe it a little bit more further. So what it does and how it works is that it will start with a data collection. So MCP will collect data from various sources. This can be websites, apps, emails, and also offline interactions. Once that data has been collected, it will be consolidated and organized within the MCP platform. And then a identity resolution will happen, which means that unique identifiers are used to match and link customer data from different sources. So this can be identities, anything from like email addresses to IDs from different platforms, etc. And that will be consolidated into the unified user profile. Then moving on to data enrichment. So additional data can be added to the unified user profile. This can be information about things like demographics or purchase histories, and as well as having real-time updates to the unified user profile continuously when a person is browsing, etc. So this can be captured through the sitemap or through other integrations like ETLs or third-party integrations also. With this data, then that can be utilized in segmentation and personalization, which the unified user profile is targeted in segmenting into audiences, which then can be personalized experiences on websites, etc. And then finally, of course, this can be reported on, which MCP offers a comprehensive reporting and analytics capabilities to provide insights about the customers and all the data that we capture about them. So what may cause the duplications then, considering this is such a great feature of MCP as well as it is in Data Cloud? Well, the duplications tend to happen upon activation to other systems. And I'm going to be talking on my next slide specifically around Marketing Cloud. So, duplicate records in Marketing Cloud coming from MCP. So I'll start off with the common situation with unknown to known conversion. So for example, during a process of converting unknown to known customers, the only identifier sometimes might be an email address. And we are going to be talking a little bit more about this with a use case showcasing later on in this presentation around newsletter subscribers. But it goes hand in hand with this. So it's depending on how the ID structure is configured as well in MCP. So the captured identifier might not be the same as it's being used in Marketing Cloud. And a common situation like this is the guest checkout on websites. So a lot of e-commerce platforms, they offer both sign up to an account as well as a guest checkout just to make everything quicker and easier. You don't have to go through a full-on form to fill out all your details. And when that happens, you will only provide the website with your email address, for example. So you will actually not create an account that normally would go into a CRM where a proper ID might be assigned to you, like a contact ID in Salesforce CRM. So what happens then in Marketing Cloud is that a lot of triggers coming from MCP might be upon a checkout, a purchase, for example. And you want to send these customers into a journey then to send out an email to confirm, for example, or anything else as such. And the problem what happens here with the guest checkout is because we haven't created an account. So the person has an email address to them. They will be sent into Marketing Cloud in that way, triggered into a journey, receive their emails, and the subscriber key will then be the email address, which means that if this person then at some point in the future might sign up to an account on this website, maybe they want to collect points, etc., or whatever reason, then once the CRM is triggering those records or synchronizing them through the Marketing Cloud connector into Marketing Cloud, that means that we're going to have two sets of contacts in there. And there's going to be separate tracking data, and it's going to be a duplicate. Same person, but with two different subscriber keys. And that costs companies quite a lot of money to hold duplicates. So I put together a little data flow map. So this is just kind of giving a visual over the actual problem that happens or issue with the duplication. So obviously not a complete data flow map between the systems, but I just try to give you guys some type of a visual representation of this. So what happens here, you have your website, you have your physical store, and your app might be connected directly to MCP, which is great. And then from there, you have all of the other systems that is talking to each other. There's activation here and there. There's data integration. Once MCP activates their data to Salesforce Marketing Cloud, we can have two options here, right? So if it will be at the guest checkout that I was talking about in the previous example, would mean that the email that is being sent out is going to John, example user, with the subscriber key of his email address. And then once he signs up to create an account in SFDC, then that will synchronize back into Marketing Cloud. And then the next email, maybe he'll jump into a trigger journey for something else. Then his subscriber key will be a contact ID, but it will be sent, the email will be sent to the same email address as in this example. So we are going to, Naresh and myself are going to be giving an example of this, but what you guys can keep in mind now is that what happens if John, for example, here would unsubscribe, and then he will be added into Marketing Cloud under a different subscriber key. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to hand over to Naresh. Thank you very much.
Hey everyone, we might actually take a bit of a 10-minute break just between presentations because that's normally what we do in person, so people can go up and get some more drinks and food and whatnot. So bear with us and we'll be back in 10 minutes. Are there any questions? Oh, actually, sorry, let's do questions first. You're right. Thank you. Let's have a look. I think there's a lot in the chat. Elliot, you've sort of had some time to process it.
I have, yeah. So maybe I'll address Simon asked a question and Eliane, if I suppose pronounced his name correctly. I just do want to call out that because that's also some assumptions people make. Oh, so I can orchestrate and harmonize all my data from all these different data sources, bring into data cloud. Now I just want to send it all back into CRM. It doesn't work like that. I mean, there's no way to go and activate that data. Oh, well, I mean, there isn't. I mean, you could go and using a CDC, this could go and trigger a kind of a flow back into to start a process, like perhaps to convert a lead or create a service case, but it doesn't pipe all of that data back into to CRM. That's not what it's designed to do. Specifically, you could go and build a Lightning Web component to go and surface data, and again using the data cloud extract API on a specific page layout. I do want to call out though, however, in the latest release in 2.4.7 come out this month, that for Industries Cloud and specifically using the data processing engine, there's a new feature where you can not only read data from Industries Cloud, but write results back to Industries Cloud, which is kind of cool. And I've check out the release notes for more information. I'm just going to go and also answer this interesting question from Simon, who says, what are your top tips for minimizing technical debt when implementing cross-cloud CRM, Marketing Cloud, and Data Cloud solutions, considering Salesforce are rebuilding Marketing Cloud into the platform? And kind of Paul hinted at this, and we've heard rumors of Marketing Cloud on Core, and there's various rumors of kind of what that will look like. And I've got a bit of an insight that I'm not at liberty to share, but I mean, yes, I think that it's fair to say that we can expect to see forward-looking statements aside, that there are some significant changes to Marketing Cloud coming in the near future. I think in response, I would be to future-proof and kind of reduce that technical debt, given that the way that kind of Marketing Cloud is feature set today will change, is that I would actually be harmonizing and orchestrating all customer data through Data Cloud. Then you kind of segment and activate this data from Data Cloud and activate in Marketing Cloud, rather than using ETL processes, that is kind of Automation Studio, to feed data into Marketing Cloud and perform your segmentation in Marketing Cloud using kind of a complex SQL query. So it's I think a really good future-proof pattern. But yeah, again, you hinted at some kind of changes. I think you can start going, and if you certainly have access to Data Cloud, and Enterprise and Unlimited customers have obviously got that $0 SKU now, which can be activated in Sales Cloud. You can start thinking and planning for this kind of future roadmap by following the pattern. Any other messages come through?
I mean, Elliot, you handled some in the chat around
Sure.
so the solution kit for the consent model. So there's a link in there, I think, for that.
There is. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, that's it made me a bit angry actually. That there's this there's a question about how do you manage a Salesforce consent model in Marketing Cloud, and this solution kit came up, which certainly isn't for the faint of heart. It's highly complex, requires significant development in order to pull it off. It's really, they actually presented it was last year, I think at Connections last year, as this kind of interim stopgap, and they said that we can kind of expect a more integrated experience in the future, but in the meantime, if you want to leverage the consent model, and of course you can, these are standard S objects, so you can certainly go and synchronize them and make them available in Marketing Cloud, but yeah, in order to use the full notion of kind of all the entities available in that highly canonical data model or consent model, you can look at this data kit.
I've got a couple of questions in the room, so
sure.
You want to go first?
No, I didn't have a question.
Oh, I thought you did. Oh, you want the break? Yeah. We'll get the break. Yep, one more. Yeah.
What are sort of your decision points you're looking for using, for example, the send connector versus going via Data Cloud into marketing? So say I have a customer checkout and the purchase is a purchase, right? For that email address, I can do a triggered send, and I don't really have to dedupe anything. I don't have to go through some bigger engine. But then, yeah, where do you sort of, does then Data Cloud, I don't pump it into a separate data extension for a specific role, or do you just have one generic extension as an endpoint from Marketing Cloud towards Data Cloud?
Did you guys hear that, or should I?
I did. I did fairly. So the question was, well, why would you put it through Data Cloud? I guess it's a great question. So firstly, and just to clarify, Data Cloud doesn't use data extensions. It has a very different, a multi-tiered object model. But you'd use where they've got a web SDK to go and capture those website events, which could in turn trigger that and activate that CDC event via Data Cloud. I guess the answer is that an advantage is that having that data available in Data Cloud provides kind of complete data lineage, and you can have this data available in real time, and has kind of petabyte scale analytics, and you can leverage kind of the rich feature set to use by a kind of a real-time stream to feed in this data. So it's not only available for Marketing Cloud, but maybe trigger something else, like I don't know, create a new service case or something in different platforms. Or of course you could do both. And I think arguably that if what you're doing is you just want to go and send a triggered send email, then I would probably do just that. It doesn't make sense to kind of maybe send to both platforms rather than create this loop and the hops from Data Cloud and kind of across to Marketing Cloud to activate that. And these kind of what are called data actions certainly have some significant limits, at least in their current form, around that, and the whole kind of model, the charging model. So I would, yeah, I'll probably do both. Thinking on the spot, send that triggered email through Marketing Cloud, but also, potentially serialize that data through kind of a data stream and using that with the Web SDK into Data Cloud.
One more. Yep.
I haven't checked out the Data Cloud. Just wondering, with the Data Cloud in the architecture, where would you view that 360 degree of customer view? Is it in the Data Cloud, or is it in the Sales Cloud, for example?
Yeah, so what a wonderful question. I mean, there is this notion of a profile explorer, which I would argue it's not really designed to have this 360 customer view. It's great for debugging. And Paul, please kind of feel free to chime in on this. I mean, by design, you can certainly use Tableau for data visualization if you want to go and provide that kind of depends what you're using as your the 360 view. I mean, you could certainly go and create a Lightning Web component and expose that back on the page layout for a lead or contact record. But Paul, do you have any?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, there are different answers for different scenarios. I think I would say very simply, but I saw a really great presentation not too long ago, actually delivered by our head of contact center at Deloitte here, but where he basically said in a contact center situation in servicing customers, the whole concept of 360 degree view is dead. That's not what we should be going for. Instead, it's the 3.6. I didn't come up with this, so I'm not going to punch it. Instead, it's the 3.6 degree view. And by that, it means what you need to be able to service the customer's interaction in the context that it's in for that point in time. So it's about optimizing the information that you present in the particular context.
I'm so stealing. Yeah, thank you, Paul. I'm so stealing that. That's awesome.
It's an interesting, isn't it? But I think that's the key, right? Like, I think that there's this relentless pursuit for this whole 360 degree view, this single view. It's one record. It's got to be the golden. That I think that's the wrong way of looking at it, right? I think you should be looking at what is the real problem that you're trying to solve. The real business problem that you're trying to solve, and then what's the effective way of solving that? It doesn't mean you got to stitch together every piece of information in every single situation. And I would like to think that the more important place to have the real view of absolutely everything pertaining to that customer is probably reporting. It's probably analytics. It's probably not the frontline CRM necessarily, right? That's my my little spiel on it. But it's a very complex topic, obviously. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, there's some more questions in the room. Yep.
Can Data Cloud integrate with external CDPs like PE?
So that did you hear that question, Elliot?
I didn't. Can you repeat it, please?
Yeah, so can Data Cloud integrate with external CDPs like Telium? And I would, my answer to that would be I don't see why not, because you can kind of integrate it in different sources via Mule, right? But I don't know.
But via Mule or S3 or kind of you can import from different data streams. With a Mule Anypoint connector, that kind of opens up to hundreds of platforms. I'm very curious why you would. In that, if you have a CDP in place, I think Data Cloud makes a lot of sense if you have a large Salesforce technology stack. But to use data cloud alongside another CDP. I actually haven't heard of that before. And the question is, which platform does what? I mean, CDPs do many things, but data cloud, obviously, which was Salesforce CDP before, and has been relabeled to data cloud, performs data unification, orchestration, harmonization, identity resolution, activation. And I think it's the main difference with data cloud is that CDPs really focusing on purely marketing automation use cases. Data cloud has a larger vision in that unlock sales and service automation use cases and much more. But yeah, the answer is yes, sure.
And it was Genie somewhere in the middle.
Oh yeah, it was Genie. Yeah, so let me just so it started off 2018 as Customer 360 at Connections, named to Customer 360 audiences at Dreamforce in the same year, then Salesforce CDP, then Genie, and now Data Cloud.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we might take a quick break.
Sure.
We're good for 10 minutes. Everyone online, 10 minutes. Go grab yourself a drink or food or whatever, and we'll be back with the next presentation shortly. Okay, guys, we're just starting to come back. So that came up. Yeah, perfect. You're good. Okay, so I'm off mute. So apologies because that's Niraj is going to be heard here. And Josephine, I think you two are tag teaming on this. So I'll just go and round up the troops. Hey everyone, let's start over taking some Might sit over the other side. I'm like right in the firing line of the camera.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining today. I hope everyone virtually can hear me. Right, Josephine? All good? Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Paul, Josephine, and Elliot for the last presentation. That was very informative. This presentation covers a part of it. This is a real-life example or problem that me and Josephine solved before regarding newsletter subscription. So we'll start with understanding what actually newsletter subscription or newsletters are, and then go about solving the problem. We are having a different problem. In Paul's scenario, there were much more data, 2 different profiles, 2 different names, probably much more. In our case, it's a bit different. We have less data in one and other, it's about right. So you can see myself as Neeraj. I am multi-cloud architect at Deloitte. That's definitely right. The email address is not right for a purpose. And if you see below, that's my profile as well, but as a subscriber. No photo, no name, just the email address. Right here, we have Josephine as well. You already know her from the last presentation moments ago, Solution Architect at OSF. She is on the board with me here, where we don't really have her name or profile photo as well. Now, the agenda is very simple enough. What is a newsletter, the problem statement, solution options, and some useful links. Exactly is a newsletter. To understand that, we carved out a customer journey. Simple enough. Let's meet John. By the way, the text below Meet John is AI generated. I went to ChatGPT to get a bit of a blurb of a person who loves to hike. I just needed 2 lines, but I got a paragraph. Of course, AI is becoming too helpful these days. On the other side, you can see a very small customer journey. Of course, for John, how he goes about the NTO website and tries to find a shoe for himself. And rather than buying a shoe, he subscribes to the newsletter. And that's where our problem starts. Now, the first part is definitely awareness. Even before John goes to homepage, there is an awareness section where he knows NTO as a brand who sells outdoor products, menswear, womenwear, hiking shoes, and whatnot. His preference was more around to go to the website and find some hiking shoes for himself. Now, he went to the homepage. He goes through the navigation bar. Eventually, he goes to the second page, which is the product display page. But he has to go through a few sections from, let's say, footwear to find the hiking shoes, eventually find one. He likes this one, although not sure if he wants to buy it yet. This is, if we scroll down below, this is a recommendation section. If any one of you working on Salesforce Commerce Cloud or any other commerce platform, this is one of the fairly simple feature of providing recommendations related to a product. Maybe it's something that administrators have configured by themselves, or it's AI powered. In our case, Einstein. Either way, you can get recommendations for the products. Now, as he scrolls down, he sees some more shoes. He is at step 3 of his journey. But as he scrolls down further, he identifies that there is a newsletter section where he can sign up for himself. He's not sure about the brand. He likes a boot, but he don't want to buy it right now. Don't want to register. Then what's the other way of being interacted with the brand? Now, one of the old ways is definitely signing up to the newsletter. But these days, you can also go to their social media accounts and sign from there. We are not covering that in this session. This is still specific to the previous use case of newsletter subscription via email. In this example, you can see that all he needs to do is provide an email address, no name, nothing, just an email address, and you will accept it and then start sending email notifications specific to this use case. What happens at the stage 5 is a bit a point of view question. So from John's point of view, of course, he knows who he is. He's sharing his email ID, and he expects a bit of a personalized communication as much as possible. From NTO's point of view, they don't really know John very well. They just have his email address, and that's about it, right? So to summarize, wherever you go to the website, scroll down below, you'll usually find this in majority of the websites. That's the newsletter portion. If you put your email address, some websites might also have last name, first name, a few more details that you can put in. It's usually not mandatory because organizations want to take as much as email addresses to start a conversation with yourself, with the customers, without an interruption. That's really what newsletter is. These are a few of the examples. So these are very specific to NTOs, travel, outdoors. But if you are related to a beauty industry, if you are with a pharmacy or anyone, they all do send you newsletters to provide an information about their products. All right, now in the session today, we'll be talking about 3 products, 3 systems from Salesforce: Salesforce CRM, Marketing Cloud, and Commerce Cloud. Now, whenever I say Commerce Cloud, we can debate or chat about other commerce products as well, which I'll try to do in some of the solution options. But this presentation is mainly focused on how we are solving problem with commerce, Salesforce Commerce Cloud. We can solve it with any other e-commerce platform as well. Now, how many of you have worked on pre-sales engineers, solutions architects? All right, so this is a pretty presentation that we give to our customers. So 3 products, Salesforce CRM, a bit of a good picture overview. Now, for the solution architects or technical architects, this is really what we are talking today. The same products, but a different presentation, right? So Commerce Cloud, Marketing Cloud, and Salesforce Core. I actually started doing a presentation with this slide. When I did a beautification, I realized that my pre-sales brain, I should stick to both of them because we have audiences from both sides here. Any questions, any clarifications, any confusion about newsletter? That's good, because that's important for the next slides to be successful. Now, best practices. We are only covering one here. So go ahead.
Is a newsletter for you like an email to the entire base of that subscription, or is it topic specific for one?
That's a good question. It depends on the maturity of the organization. For example, the one we saw here, it was generic. But at times, when you are doing a newsletter subscription and the e-commerce platforms or the organizations are mature enough, they would usually ask you to tick for a certain use cases as well. In some situations, if brands, if they are multi-brand organizations, maybe in the similar website or different, they would usually have different newsletters for each brand. For example, Cotton On, if you go to their website right now, it's a single website for multi-brand. Like they have Cotton On Kids, Supre, and a few more. But they don't have newsletter. But if they would have, they would usually go, if you go to the particular brand, you might be subscribing to that particular newsletter. That's a good question, and it's usually decided from a commerce point of view and marketing point of view together. But that makes things a bit more complex. All right, the best practice. Now, we are not talking about everything. It's just one best practice that we have to consider today, which is whenever we have CRM in between for Marketing Cloud, doesn't matter if we have commerce or not. Elliot touched on that. Josephine did touch on that as well previously, where there would be a subscriber key use case. Subscriber key is a unique identifier. Like in Salesforce, we have Salesforce IDs. That is subscriber key for Marketing Cloud. Now, we can have email address as one of it, but the recommendation is if you
Niraj, can you hear me? I think we lost you. Niraj, can you hear me? I think we lost you.
Okay, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, we got dumped out again. Not sure why. Anyway. All right, back to it.
All right. So, best practice. Wherever there is a commerce platform, CRM in between, we should use Salesforce contact ID. And the reason is you may change the email addresses more often. In Salesforce, if you have CRM, that ID is going to stick with that contact forever, like literally forever. And that was one of the reasons. There are many other reasons for it, but that's one of the reasons for doing it. This topic will again come further in our presentation. Now, the problem statement, I'll hand over to Josephine for problem statement.
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Niraj. Would you be able to mute yourself, perhaps, because it's fallback again? Okay. If you can go to next slide, please. So what is the problem? Well, as we've been discussing throughout, it is the duplication of subscribers in Marketing Cloud. And that happens when there is a subscriber becoming a customer, which in this example, you can see that we have a newsletter subscriber being John. And then we have a registered customer with a proper contact ID, as well as his email address that he signed up originally with the newsletter subscription. Next slide, please. And I wanted to visualize this for you guys to see what kind of happens in format of a data flow map. So the first interaction he had was going into a newsletter journey. So he signs up to receive newsletters on the website, perhaps. Then that will be injected into SFMC through various ways. A common one is called Web Collect, and which will then insert him into a journey, for example, a newsletter journey with subscriber key being his email address. He will receive his newsletter by email, and then a various of actions might happen after that. We don't know. Potentially he will unsubscribe, potentially not. Anyway, that's the type of common scenario journey when someone signs up for a newsletter. And then down the line, he might register to an account with his company. So he might want to collect some loyalty points, he might make a purchase, etc. Either way, the way he signs up brings him to be sent into SFDC and being created as a contact that then will be synchronized into Marketing Cloud. So now there is a difference between these records. So there's going to be two, because he's also going to be entering a journey, but that journey is a separate journey to the newsletter one, and he's going to enter with a subscriber contact ID. However, his email address is still the same, so he's going to be sent an email in regards to, could be a commercial send, can be a transactional send. Either way, it's going to be a communication to him as a different record, even though it is the same person. So you can go to the next slide, please. So here you can see an overview of the different data points that we're talking about. So we have the subscriber key of the newsletter subscriber with the email address. And then John, as a registered user, has the contact ID as well as his normal email address and potentially other types of data points as well. Next slide. Okay, so why should we care about this? Well, a few different reasons. The first one is in business context. And I think the number one most important one, potentially at least for businesses, is the cost. Just picture everyone that you have in your database being a duplicate because they started out as a newsletter subscriber and was being collected into Marketing Cloud in the way of that the identifier of the contact would be the email address. So that's going to be very, very costly. Then we also have an issue with that if we are going to initiate deletion of these contacts, and I will be describing this a bit further down the road, which also Elliot touched really well on previously, is the deletion access is something that you need to have in place, as well as a custom configuration to handle these duplicates to go into a deletion process. So it is a little bit complex there. You, as a business as well, you want to be able to report accurately on engagement data, but if you have two separate records, you're not going to really be able to get like a full picture of a person's tracking data and engagement history because of this. As well as your brand might have different newsletters for registered versus guest customers. So it's all just going to be a bit of a mess in terms of different email sends that is actually going out to the same person. And that brings to the next point here, subscriber integrity. And no one wants to be receiving duplicate emails, and that can happen. You might be entering the same journey twice with your contact ID as subscriber key and then your email address as the subscriber key, and being sent the same email 2 times. So that's bad both for the business as well as for the subscriber. Not a very nice subscriber experience. And then it's going to be very difficult to manage your communication preferences as well, because you might have opted out or opted in for certain areas of the business that you want to receive email communication to, but that's not going to be consistent with the other subscriber that you have because you have 2 now. And then, of course, that leads to compliance issues in terms of Spam Act policies. So as I mentioned above in the data flow map with that, John might have unsubscribed. Well, what if his contact ID record would have gone into a journey that is commercial and keeps being sent promotional materials? He's probably going to be complaining, and that's also compliance issues for the company. And then, yeah, the same thing again is that you cannot really get the customer's complete engagement history with this issue. And then moving on to the preference management, another issue is the cloud page security is going to be an issue with configuring that. There's a lot of security concerns when dealing with cloud pages at all times. And when you have inconsistent structure of your data, that's going to become a potential security risk as well when you're setting up and configuring this, if it's not aligned. And then we also can talk about the source of truth. So for the preferences, where is this truth going? So if John has opted out, where is that data going to be held if that will be for his subscriber key being his email address? That can't go back into the CRM. So how's that cloud page going to be capturing that accurately? So then you're going to have two separate processes separating if someone has an email address, that's going to be potentially sent into Marketing Cloud only, and then lots of logic around creating that. And then John's contact ID, that's going to be sent back to SFTC because that's going to be your source of truth. And it's just creating this mess that you don't want to have to really deal with. And the same with cloud page security, just back to that as well, is that email address, if you pass in parameters, I mean, there's a lot of like proper secure ways of doing this, but passing parameters, an email address is actually personal identifiable information rather than a contact ID being a string of numbers and letters, which then also goes down to the compliance again, that it needs to be registered if he's opted out properly, not only to one of his records, like both. He shouldn't be receiving any more emails to his email address, no matter if the subscriber keys are two different ones. So all of this just results in additional work for cloud pages to cater for non-CRM records, if that's how it's set up with like Salesforce CRM, etc. And that's that. So then back to the problem with the web collect. And I mean, not saying that web collect is problematic in itself. It's just the issues around like duplicates kind of relates back to that, because often companies uses web collect, or let's say a cloud page sign up form to inject data directly back into Marketing Cloud, which is a great functionality, and it works fine. But it's just that if there is a CRM that is also creating these records, then it's going to result in duplicates once that subscriber has converted to a customer and has a proper ID assigned in the CRM. So then the CRM will now insert the same customer but with a different subscriber key into Marketing Cloud, and this is what's causing the duplication of records. And we can go to the next slide, please. I think this is yours, Neeraj.
That's right. Thanks, Josephine. Now, to put things into perspective of the data flow, if you look at the diagram, that's green, Marketing Cloud, the yellow, and Service Cloud or Salesforce Core, blue color. The data is flowing from commerce to marketing using Web Collect. That's something similar to Web to Leads. If you're familiar in Salesforce, you take it from Marketing Cloud, put it into Commerce Cloud, and it starts sending data directly to Marketing Cloud. Now, that's what we are using as of now and causing duplications, because when you do a subscription, a newsletter subscription, email address sends to Marketing Cloud, a record is created with a subscriber key as an email ID. If the customer or if the subscriber chooses to register as a customer, as a logged in customer, they create an account, then in the Salesforce world, at least from Commerce Cloud, the data flows into Service Cloud using an SFRA cartridge. If you're familiar with Commerce Cloud, it's something similar to an Exchange product. You definitely have to do a bit more configuration in there called B2C CRM Sync, from where the data can go from Commerce to Salesforce Core. From Salesforce Core, I think it's a breeze where you can use Marketing Cloud Connect. I'm sure most of you must be familiar with this product, an Exchange product, which sends the data from Salesforce Core, Service Cloud, to Marketing Cloud. Now, in Marketing Cloud, as Josephine mentioned, you have two customers now, one with a subscriber key of a contact ID, which is a registered customer. We are going to use that moving forward, but also a newsletter subscriber with an email address. Any questions so far? Yeah.
I don't want to preempt your slides, but I know you had a diagram earlier around the subscriber flow going straight to Marketing Cloud and causing duplications and all these sort of issues you guys are covering off. But wouldn't you resolve or be able to resolve all of that if CRM was already in the mix in that flow?
That is true, and that's really the solution options. But that's pretty obvious. That's right. But there are a few ways to do about it, and even you can do that in Marketing Cloud as well. And that's the point we wanted to make. Of there are a few ways. Which one is best is for you to choose. Sorry. Oh, good. All right. Move on to the next slide. Salesforce solution kits. Yes, we have checked it, and there is no documentation from Salesforce. Surprised, but again, newsletter subscription is not a day-to-day, often used thing in multi-cloud environments. Me and Josephine particularly stumped on this problem, so we thought to share with every one of you, and we are ahead. All right, solution options. I'll hand it over back to Josephine for solution option 1, which is in Marketing Cloud.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Niraj. Yeah, as Niraj was mentioning earlier, we actually had a real-life use case that we, when we worked together, that we were tackling this, and we were discussing all of these 3 options that we're presenting today, hence why the inspiration to actually do this talk. Anyway, I'm going to be talking about solution option number 1, which is the Marketing Cloud customization option. This is going hand in hand with what Elliot was describing earlier as well. And this is directly relating to utilizing Web Collect or let's say the Cloud Page contact form that you have available in Marketing Cloud. So the problem that I was describing before, this is a solution to that problem within Marketing Cloud as a platform. So not going through CRM or any other platform. So we want to keep this solution within Marketing Cloud. We don't want to utilize any other platforms. There could be a scenario where a business has decided that they don't have the resources to be sorting this problem out in SFDC, for example, and they have a dedicated team that can tackle this within Marketing Cloud itself. So our recommendation then would be to create a customized automation in Marketing Cloud to identify the duplicate records based on email address. So if a record exists twice with the same email address, we can initiate a contact deletion process on the records that has email address as a subscriber key. And next slide will explain what's needed in that process. Thank you. So obviously, this doesn't necessarily have to be a step-by-step guide or anything. You can do this in different ways, but on a high level, what you first want to identify is the logic. So you might want to do an SQL query to look for records existing twice with the same email address. Then you would store that into a data extension. And then what you want to do, and this is a tip as well, because sometimes you might kind of like forget about like this might be an important part, but I would always recommend to back this data up, even though you might decide on merging these in other systems or you have a solution to it. I would always recommend to back this up before commencing deletion. Just for future records, if there would ever be any references that you need to make to this parsec tracking history of these records, and you can back that up to either SFTPs or into a separate data warehouse, and so on. And that will be around the unsubscription data and engagement data. Then you would go back to look at the logic. So you would decide to potentially carry over existing preferences to the SFTC record if you have Salesforce Sales to Service Cloud. And if so, then you want to take both SFMC and SFTC into consideration. SFTC will most likely be your source of truth, but there's also data in Marketing Cloud that needs to be updated. So for example, all subscribers might need to be updated in that scenario. So just keep that in mind, I'd say. And then once all of that is complete, you can commence your deletion process, which means that you would run a script on a specific cadence to delete the records that meet this criteria. And next slide, please. So pros and cons for solution number 1 to customize Marketing Cloud for a deletion process and keeping everything in Marketing Cloud, not using any other platforms. So the pros with this would be exactly that, to maintain the solution within Marketing Cloud. We don't need to involve any other departments in terms of work making. Might potentially be a cheaper option as well, depending on the business structure and setup. And there might not be any available teams to work in other type of platforms for this solution as well. And if the CRM wouldn't be sitting within Salesforce, the other platforms might not even have the capabilities of handling that. So that's a few of the pros for solution option 1. The cons are that we are reliant on an automation running as it should. And as we all know, there can be errors in Automation Studio. So it would be like constant maintenance, keeping up with the solution. So you can't just turn it on and just kind of forget about it. Because then if it errors out, then the duplication is going to continue to count up. Then we also need to have technical knowledge on a developer level. That's required to create a deletion process because we are working with script activities, and as well as more of a solution design is required around the subscriber preferences and backup, and also around like how the script logic is built. I would say that this is a band-aid solution, considering Marketing Cloud is looked at as a receiver of data. So I would say that this option is absolutely possible. There's nothing really wrong with this option. Sometimes this might be the best solution as well. However, I would say if there is a possibility, if we have an option to go with either solution option 2 or 3 that Neeraj will now present, I would probably recommend to look at those rather than this one. But that's just my opinion though. So over to you, Neeraj.
Thanks, Josephine. Any questions? All right.
We're just calling out, we've got about 5 minutes.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I can wrap it up. Now, as Richard was mentioning the problem, that was an obvious problem. If you remove a link from commerce and marketing, I think it's self-explanatory. It should solve the problem. To keep in mind, there is no issue between Service Cloud and Marketing Cloud. That green is good. We are not talking about that. We are only talking about how we can get the data in Service Cloud directly. And that's for both newsletters and registered customers. For registered customers, we already checked that it's possible using B2C CRM sync. That's all good. Now, option 2 and 3 will talk about how we can do from commerce to service at a minimum cost or at the best possible solution. Option 2 is web to leads. Of course, no brainer. Why not? Because you usually have it in your Salesforce CRM. Web to lead is an option. Again, a very easy implementation. I wouldn't even say an implementation. I would say a platform capability to enable. The downsides definitely is that only supports up to 500 leads per day. Anything more than that, suppose will fail. And again, if the use cases are where you can have more than 500 subscribers, newsletter subscribers every day, first of all, kudos to the customer. If they do, then that's amazing. You can look at option 3, which is the next. But if not, I think this is still a better option, low code, and you can implement that in days. Also, it comes, as I said, it comes with almost every Salesforce platform. Now, the next steps are to configure web to lead. I'm sure you're across it. If not, it's pretty easy to do it. You just have to follow the wizard. At the end of the wizard, it will give you a snippet, which you can paste on your website, e-commerce website. You definitely have to do CSS based on the look and feel. That's not it, because if we just put leads in Marketing Cloud, during conversion, as Elliot mentioned, the engagement history will not come across. Hence, the proposed solution was to create a Salesforce record trigger flow. Again, a very easy implementation. Create a contact out of it, and then delete the leads at the end via batch or any other process. End of the day, you are only sending contacts to Marketing Cloud, nothing else. You can manage by record type, you can manage by just type field. There are a few ways to do it. The next option is integration. Now, it's B2C CRM sync if you have Salesforce Commerce Cloud, extending on top of the cartridge, extending on top of the cartridge that you have. But if it's any other e-commerce platform, again, the RESTful APIs are available from Salesforce to integrate directly. What that really means is it looks much more cleaner. It does, and it is. But the downside is you will have to implement that on your commerce platform. Now, with Commerce Cloud particularly, I know it's a pain, although you have a cartridge available, but still it's a pain to implement. With other e-commerce platforms, again, it will be a custom integration. So it's a cleaner solution if your problem statement is it. And the comparison is really where option one is done in Marketing Cloud. The complexity is pro code. You have to do a lot of customization. Limitations I would call maintenance. There are many more, as Josephine mentioned, but the maintenance is definitely one of them. Do you want to do maintenance for this thing in Marketing Cloud? Time to market can be days to weeks, depending who's doing it. It can take days to weeks. When should you do it? As Josephine mentioned, if the preferred platform becomes Salesforce Marketing Cloud, where CRM cannot do it, or CRM doesn't really have capability to do it, or business has inclination to do it. We have seen this many times, have been done in Marketing Cloud. The next is option two, which we talked about, Salesforce CRM, low code, because it's usually point and click programming. 500 leads per day is a limitation, of course. I think that's a generous limitation considering newsletter subscriptions. It definitely will take days, cannot take weeks. If it's taking weeks, that's something is not right there. And it's only applicable for Salesforce CRM. It might be applicable for other CRMs as well if they allow a capability as such. But this use case is only for Salesforce. It may not become a viable solution if you need more than 500 subscribers every day. Option three will be done in Commerce Cloud or e-commerce platforms where the newsletters will be directly created into Contact. Again, maintenance is a concern. It can take days to weeks. It can be viable if the use cases supports, and it's definitely a cleaner solution from our point of view. And I think that's about it. We do have a few links if you want to have a look at what Visual's B2C CRM Sync is, Web2Lead is. It'll all be there with the presentation. I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Got a couple of minutes for questions.
Yeah.
With the 500 leads limitation, is that per Web2Lead form? What if you have multiple Web2Leads or you're creating leads to other processes? Does that all count towards that daily limit, or is it per?
I am not sure. I think it's per org, but yeah, we can definitely review that in the documentation. I think it's per org, but I might be wrong.
In all orgs, you can't create more than 500.
Via Web2Lead.
Via Web2Lead.
Via Web2Lead. Yes. One integration you can create as many as you like.
Well, provided you've got the API.
APIs. they are very generous with APIs, although. Any other questions?
So just one last question, and then this may be more related to the previous session that we had, the first half. So considering that Salesforce is now pushing Data Cloud as to be the key player in the higher enterprise architecture, how is there a sort of a pack or rationale that Salesforce can provide to agencies or partners to justify to the client about the extra cost that will be involved in? I'm assuming a lot
Well,
of.
it's free now.
not the segmentation, right? Like not the activation.
No, I know.
That's the main part.
I was going to get to that. I was getting to that. Until you put data into it or
Yes.
use it. But there are decks. So if you're a partner, are you a partner or are you? No, you're.
I'm still about 100 years away from partners.
No. Sorry, I mean like an implementation partner.
Yes.
As opposed to okay. So on partner community, quite often there are first call decks around different areas like data cloud. So if you go and search on partner community, you should be able to find something that is a bit of a rationale or an argument as to the value.
It also depends on your relationship with Salesforce and Salesforce AEs. If you are thinking there is a way, Salesforce will come along with you most of the times to justify it.
That's
Yeah.
right. If there's a sale, then you know.
Exactly. That's why they're there for.
I was going to ask which one you chose. Which option did you go with?
We ended up going with the second one, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, because for our use case, 500 was a lot.
Yeah.
That's true.
You said in the newsletter we just type in the email, that's it, right? But with third option, we should have some more details, like we are creating content.
You can have it with second option as well. And if you have seen in the presentation, I added last name as well. So at least with our use case, we had last name and email address because last name is mandatory to create a contact and a lead, I suppose. So yes, last name was an additional item for that, but that can become a resistance for users to enter more detail. They may just enter email address for many reasons.
Can I just assume if they are just entering email, the first option would be best?
First option, I wouldn't say it will be best, but that will be the only option.
You can still create leads with just any option.
Sorry?
You can still create lead record.
The idea was to create a contact eventually. So lead is just, I would say, the first entry point, but the idea was always to create a contact and then send it across to Marketing Cloud. That's why. Any other questions? All right.
So I think we'll close it off because we've only got the room until 8:30, so technically we're running a little bit late. But thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for bearing with us online. I noticed the attendance did dwindle over the course of the time, probably because we're not so slick or smooth at doing this yet, but many thanks for turning up and bearing with us, and thank you for all those who turned up in person as well. Yeah, let's keep doing this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for our presenters. Thank you. Catch you later. I think Elliot's already left.